Shifting focus now. The Himalayan state of Sikkim. Is facing a new challenge. It has not yet been able to put in place a functional testing lab. It was testing all the samples all the while in the neighboring North Bengal hospital that is just across the border in West Bengal. But due to increasing number of cases and increasing number of people coming in Bengal itself, the North Bengal hospital has said at least for the next few days it would not be able to test any samples from Shillong because the samples from within West Bengal have piled up and there is no way that it can take the burden from any of the neighboring states. Adding to the problem is that the testing lab that was inaugurated a few days back at the STNM hospital in Gangtok is yet to be made functional. It may be made functional in a day or two. That is what the State Health Secretary told NorthEast Live today. But as of now, the state is awaiting results for 800 samples. 85 samples were returned from the North Bengal hospital yesterday. So what is the way forward for Sikkim? Because returnees are coming back in hundreds every day. This will put a burden on the facility quarantine centers. Samples need to be tested. Those who test negative will have to be sent to home quarantine. But in the absence of any testing, the numbers will only increase. We are being joined by Dr. Beena Basnet, President Hamro Sikkim, to discuss more on this. Mr. Navraj Gurung, SKM General Secretary, will also join us in a while. But Dr. Basnet, Sikkim, which had managed to stay COVID-free for a long time, and of course you can't deny any credit to the state government for this and the people of the state, but the state is facing a crisis of sorts now as returnees reach state. Lack of testing center, a functional testing center is the crisis Sikkim is staring at now. Do you think the Sikkim government, how could the Sikkim government not see it coming, Dr. Basnet?
So I think Sikkim, basically the health infrastructure since the beginning only, we also belong to a political party and we had come to politics also just because of all these things which were lacking behind in the state, and the infrastructure was so bad that every patient from Sikkim, like whosoever were serious, they were taken to a district. Siliguri is a district of West Bengal, but being a state, we are referring our patients to Siliguri. It's quite sad for the state. So we were quite vocal about it. So hurriedly, a big hospital was inaugurated and things like that by the past government. But what happened was the infrastructure was lacking, though the structure was ready, but the infrastructure was lagging. So for now, because there was no virology lab in Sikkim, the RT-PCR was just done in Manipal, and there also it was not quite functional. So for them to set up a virology lab itself takes its time, because it has to get accreditation from ICMR and things like that. So recently they have come up with a lab, and all the process of accreditation and all of those things took them time, because biosafety and everything has to be set, the technical aspects of it. So most probably they're saying, according to their statement, they're saying that in a day or two they'll be able to do it. But now we can't also really blame North Bengal government or North Bengal College for not taking the samples, because they are overburdened right now, because they're getting samples from so many districts. For them, it is the samples are overwhelmingly coming, and then for them to handle samples from other states is also difficult. So we can't also blame or burden them with that. So for us, the real requirement was that we should have been prepared in a sense that we should have had the lab before, but it was lagging. We can't blame the present government also, because they're trying, but since the structure, since everything was lacking to even get all the technical aspects into place, so it takes time. So it's quite sad and unfortunate. Now the samples are coming back, and hopefully we're just hoping that like in a day or two our lab becomes functional, because the only test which they are doing now is through NAT, and that is not confirmatory. So with RT-PCR functioning, I hope in day or two that our lab becomes functional. So yeah, that's the scenario here.
Yes, but now there is no certainty whether the testing lab at STNM will be functional by tomorrow and the samples will only pile up. What should be the immediate action plan if, say, the lab, God forbid, doesn't become functional in a few days' time? Would Sikkim require to restrict entry of the stranded for a while?
So I think the stranded people, because since the population of Sikkim is not that much, and then the people coming in are not in huge numbers, so the quarantine centers, because it's been set in all the districts, so it shouldn't be overwhelming the quarantine centers. Here, what I think is like, what they can do is like, since the TrueNat, they are doing it. So at least the negative test is confirmed that the test, if they are negative, then people who test negative are sent for home quarantine after 7 days. So they're taking samples like in the fifth, sixth day, and then they're if the test turns out to be negative, they're sending the samples home. If at all any test is coming positive, then they were sending it to North Bengal for confirmatory. So for now, what they can do is like half of the samples were going to North Bengal. Now what they can do is like whatever test can be done through TrueNat here will be done, and they can send like whosoever test negative can send home, and then it will be a slower, the process would slow down, of course. But yes, if there is at all any positive test, then they should make a special request to the North Bengal to like really confirm the case. If at all the state doesn't function, the lab doesn't function in day or two here.
That will be required. Beena Basnet, just digressing a bit, do you think the state government the Sikkim government has an economic revival plan in place in a state which is majorly dependent on tourism?
So I think since this is an unprecedented crisis for all the states, it's quite difficult for the state. According to our CM statement, they're saying that their task force is ready, and they have taken people from every strata and from all the they've taken all the stakeholders, and they are really working on the economic revival plan. But to bring it on ground, it's quite difficult, because Sikkim as such also, it's dependent, mostly the revenue, it comes from tourism. And now because of this pandemic, and we were hoping that Sikkim was not detecting any positive case, so we thought that later when there is the opening of the lockdown, people would come to a safer zone. So we were hoping that the tourism would pick up like once the lockdown was over, and we could really focus on how to take it in a new hygienic and different ways of like taking the tourism forward. But now since now the cases are being detected here also, like, so there is a big question mark on how tourism is going to pick up. So let's see. I mean, government, they're saying that they are really working on it, but of course, like, it's quite difficult to say for now. So we're just hoping everything falls on place, and then the poorer sector, we are being vocal about giving up direct benefits to the lower income strata group, like drivers and migrants and people like that. They can get directly benefited, and also all these small businesses which are here, to giving them loan and whichever is viable to support them to really recover. So they have come up with few plans, but still to get things on place and get it implemented, it's again a big question mark. Let's hope for the best.
Absolutely, let's hope for the best. Thank you so much, Dr. Beena Basnet, for joining us. Well, we are trying to connect with the SCAM General Secretary Navraj Gurung. In the meantime, we have our in the meantime we have our Gangtok correspondent Sujal Pradhan over the phone. Sujal, what are you picking up from your sources? Is there any possibility of the testing lab at STNM being functional by tomorrow? Sujal.
Yes, as I talked with the General Secretary of the General of Health Department, he confidently said that tomorrow a team from the Kolkata, in fact, they have already reached the Gangtok, so tomorrow they will test, they are bringing their own test sample, which they will try in the Sikkim, as per the norm, as per the norm they are doing. So if the test went all went, then the test from Sikkim can be done from tomorrow.
And how many are more samples piling up, Sujal? How many samples are waiting results in the North Bengal hospital now? Of course, we know 85 were returned yesterday, but already how many are piled up there?
Yes, in fact, they are saying that in 6,194 samples were pending. There are nearly 800 are from Sikkim are pending from Sikkim side.
All right, Sujal, thank you so much for all those updates. We will have to take a very short break here. After the break, we'll be joined by SKM leader Navraj Gurung. We'll get to know the government's perspective, the Sikkim government's perspective. Welcome back. You're watching Bottom Line. We were discussing the situation in Sikkim. Samples are piling up in Sikkim as there is no functional testing lab. We'll also be joined from Shillong in the meantime by Dr. Prasanjit Biswas, Professor Nehu. But before that, we are being joined over the phone by Mr. Navraj Gurung. Navraj Gurung, of course, is the General Secretary of the SKM and also the party's social media in charge. Welcome to Bottom Line, Mr. Navraj Gurung. The lone testing lab in Sikkim is yet to be made functional. In the meantime, samples are piling up. So what is the plan now? Can we see the testing lab being functional in the next 2 days?
Yes. Sir, today some equipment has arrived today to SKM, and most probably the test will start from tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, then day after, definitely from day after, the RT-PCR test will be carried on in SKM itself. Yes, and some of the samples are still pending in the North Bengal hospital. I don't know. I'm not supposed to comment on it, but this is till 4 days. Till the next 4 days, they have said new samples will be taken. So we have around 800 samples still pending. But from tomorrow, or at the least day after tomorrow, we will have our own RT-PCR lab running. So we won't need to go to North Bengal.
Well, there is great news if it becomes functional by day after tomorrow. But do you think, Mr. Navraj Gurung, this could have been avoided? I know there are a lot of systems, procedures, protocols that have to be followed. You need permission from the ICMR. There's a lot of procedure that goes into it. But do you think this kind of a situation could have been avoided if things were done in a war footing, which I'm sure it was, but maybe if things were speeded up a bit more?
For this government, it was a new thing. And as you know, a virology lab was proposed by the Indian government during the time of Mr. Pawan Kumar Chamling, but he was some fund that also decided, but he did not give any place for starting the lab, and that is why we did not have a virology lab in Sikkim till today. But immediately after the COVID thing came up, although the lockdown was there all over the country, but we still managed to get the equipment, and by now it has the room, everything has been ready, the equipment has been put in place, and now some little technical errors are there, and from tomorrow or day after tomorrow they are going to run the lab. So that is not much of a problem now.
Okay, absolutely. And with the number of stranded coming back to the state, any plans in the long run, especially some of them may not go back very soon, the conditions are not feasible. Is the government, what is the government's economic revival plan as far as Sikkim is concerned?
In regard to economic revival plans, we have a committee formed led by a BJP MLA, Sonam Benjampa, and Mr. C.N. Benjampa, the Chief Economic Advisor to the Chief Minister, is also a member there. Professor Mahendra P. Lama, another Chief Economic Advisor to Government of Sikkim, he is also a member there. And one of our youth DCs, his name is Sonam Bompo, he is also a member there. I think he's a IIM graduate, so he's also a member there. And the member secretary is Finance Secretary come Additional Chief Secretary, Mr. V.V. Patel. So now their meetings are going on. They are deliberating on every issue, and soon we will come up with a report. So this way we are for economic revival. And this committee has been very good people have been put in this committee, which shows the state is very much serious in the revival of the economy here.
My last question to you, Mr. Gurung. Sikkim is a state which is majorly dependent on tourism. How difficult do you think is economic revival in such circumstances because of the current situation, because of the current pandemic?
Well, we know that the effect is going to be large. Okay, it's going to hit us quite well, but we are prepared for that now. There's nothing we can do right now. If the lockdown continues and if we are not supposed to allow our tourists to get in, then yes, some economic problem will come up. But the state government is there, and the people will also cooperate. Hoteliers, they are holding the meetings with the state government, and everyone is in touch with each other. So we are there. We are aware that now we will not have any more tourists, and since this being a tourism dependent state, yes, it will have a big effect in our economy. But the state government, with collaboration with the center and from the help from the center, we will manage it. We will manage it. But we are looking at how we can compensate the hoteliers or this kind of businesses. They have also placed their demands to the government. Nothing has been finalized now, but yes, the revival committee will come up with a report, and in that report, it will advise the state government for the steps to be taken by the state government. And that way, we are quite confident we can handle it.
All right, Mr. Nabraj Gurung, thank you so much for all those updates. We hope that the testing lab becomes functional in a day or two. Otherwise, things look a bit critical for the Himalayan state of Sikkim, which of course has done very, very well so far as containing the crisis is concerned. Well, I'm being joined